why English, and especially the spellings, have always caused me a great deal of grief. Every time I've asked my English teacher, why is this spelled the way it is? Because it looks one way, but it's pronounced another way. And the only answer I've ever received from my teachers was, English is a crazy language. And here I have with me one of the craziest teachers I've ever been taught by, Professor Upendran Subramanian. Professor Upendran retired from the Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, Hyderabad. He is known for his radio and television programs with All India Radio and Doordarshan. And many of you probably know him in his current avatar as the columnist for The Hindu, Know Your English. Something that I've always meant to ask you, but I never did, was you always played songs when you taught us. Why?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think one of the best ways to learn any language is through songs. You think about your own experience. What were the first things you learned when you were going to school? As far as English was concerned, what was it that you learned? What did you learn?
Songs and rhymes.
Rhymes. Why did you learn rhymes?
Well, it was fun.
It was fun, right? It was probably the most fun thing that we ever learned. So and so, if I said Jack and Jill, what would you say?
Went up the hill.
Next.
To fetch a pail of water.
When did you learn this? You don't have to give me the exact age, but when did you learn this?
Maybe when I was
ago.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Decades ago. But you still remember it. Why?
The very straightforward answer would be that because it was fun.
It was fun. You learnt it. You had fun saying it in school. And when you went home, what did you do?
I was excited to say it to my parents.
Yes, and we all did this. We went home. We stood in front of our parents and we said, Jack and Jill went up the hill. And the parents were happy. And when a poor, unfortunate guest came home, what did you do?
We did it one more time.
You did it one more time. And what did the poor guest do?
Applaud.
Applaud. And when the guest applauded, what did you do? You felt?
Very, very enthusiastic.
Very, very happy. Now the question to you is, when you were learning that rhyme, did you ever worry about the meaning? What about you? Did you worry about the meaning?
No, I don't think I ever understood or even bothered knowing the meaning of Jack and Jill went up the hill until very late in my life.
Never really worried about the meaning. In fact, as far as we were concerned, the whole thing was just one word. You started with Jack and Jill, and then you ended at Jill came tumbling after. You never stopped in between. Now the question to you is, why did Jack and Jill go up the hill?
I have no idea.
According to the rhyme, they went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. But does water come down or does it go up?
It comes down.
It comes down. So why did these two idiots come down? Go up, rather. The rhyme doesn't really make sense, but we weren't worried about the meaning. What we were worried about was learning the rhyme. And we all enjoyed learning the rhyme. We didn't worry about the meaning at all. And in fact, we learnt a lot of rhymes without worrying about the meaning. And the great thing about this whole thing about learning rhymes is we thought we were learning English without understanding a single word. Now take, for example, this rhyme, ring-a roses.
Right.
Did you learn it?
I did.
Okay. What is the rhyme?
You know, the funny thing is, it was only much later in my life that I figured out the original rhyme. But until then, I always thought it was ringa roses.
Okay. Then, what is it? What is the right word? Not ringa roses.
But ring around the rosies.
Right. Ring around the rosies. What's the next line?
Pocket full of posies.
And?
Well, the funny thing is, for almost all my life, I sang Asha, Busha, all fall down.
Asha, Busha, we all fall down. The question is, why do we fall down?
Nobody ever taught me that.
No one ever told you that. Your teacher said, fall down, you fell down. And when you fell down, did you cry?
No, we laughed.
You laughed, right? You laughed. And how often do you laugh when you normally fall down?
You never do.
You never do. But here it was. And what is it that you did? You held hands. Ring a roses, pocket full of posies, asha, busha, we all fall down. You fell down because your teacher said fall down. You fell down and you were happy, you laughed. These two words, hasha, busha, have you ever found them in the dictionary?
No.
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 So who is this hasha, busha?
Well, we know there is no Asha, Busha.
Hasha, busha was originally a tissue.
I see.
Not a tissue, but a tissue meaning a sneeze. A tissue, we all fall down. Now, why do we fall down?
I think this has something to do with the plague.
Yes, it has to do with the plague. See, when we were learning the rhyme in India, as I said earlier, we never worried about the meaning. And most of the time, our teachers weren't worried about the meaning. They just said, here is a rhyme, enjoy yourself, say it as many times as you possibly can. This is what English is all about. And we believed it. So much so, if I were to wake you up at 12 o'clock in the night, which I wouldn't, but if I did and said, Jack and Jill, what would you say?
Went up the hill.
Right. And then what would you say? Leave me alone. I want to sleep. Okay. But the point is, you still remember it after, in my case, close to 7 decades. Okay. I still remember the lines of the rhyme. And that's what rhymes do. They help you remember words. And in the case of, without really worrying about the meaning, in the case of Ring Around the Roses, it is not a rhyme, because if you looked at the meaning, it is not a rhyme that you should be teaching children.
Right.
Okay, because, as you said, it's about the plague. And at the end, when you say, we all fall down, you're all falling down dead. Okay? It's not like, oh, you're falling down because you were having fun. You're falling down dead. It's about the plague. So Ring Around the Roses is when people got the plague in Europe, being Europeans and being of fair complexion, the skin erupted in boils which were pink in color. So they formed in rings, these boils. Pocket full of posies. What are posies?
Flowers.
Flowers or flower petals. People used to carry around flower petals in their pockets. Why? Because the stench of death was everywhere. People were dying at such a rate that they couldn't really bury the bodies. So many of the bodies were left on the street. So people had to carry flower petals so that they could smell something nice. Pocket full of posies, a tissue. You started sneezing because you caught some germ or the other, and you got the plague, you sneezed, and you died.
That sounds very, very, very
plaguey.
Yes. Not something we should be teaching our children.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, when we were taught this rhyme, the teacher didn't explain why we're falling down. It was holding hands, moving around, and then falling. We had fun. And this goes back to my main point, which is rhymes and songs help you to remember things that you would otherwise forget. Take, for example, your first prose lesson that you had in English. Do you even remember the words?
I don't.
Do you even remember the lesson?
No, I don't.
You don't. I mean, if you really think about it, we don't remember our prose lessons. Why? Because they had nothing in them, in the sense of there was no rhyme, there was no rhythm, nothing. It was just once upon a time, blah, blah, blah. You forget. But rhymes and rhythm, you always remember. And if you can introduce songs or rhymes in the classroom, your students will pick up English.
I think the plague deserves its own episode. So until we return next time, I hope you enjoyed what we had to share with you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.